Kia ora koutou. No mai, piki mai, kaki mai. Welcome. I declare this meeting of the Wastewater Treatment Plant in Landfill Joint Committee open. Members are reminded that this meeting is being live streamed, kia ora everybody, and to please use your microphones. We will now lead into the karakia. Toru whā. Whakatakata hau ki te uru. Whakatakata hau ki te tonga. Kia mā kina kina ki uta. Kia mā tātara ki tai. E hi ake ana te atakura. He tio, he huka, he hauhu, tihei, mauri ora. Kia ora everybody. There are no apologies. However, I do note that Mayor Baker is attending this meeting online. Welcome, Your Worship. Before I move to public forum, I do want to take a moment to make a comment from the Chair without debate, and then I will immediately ask for Representative Allen for a moment to have a comment as well. As I begin today's meeting, it will pass no one's notice, well I hope, that this is the last meeting of this committee within the current triennium. So I want to acknowledge that this will also be my last meeting in this term as chair. At this stage, I do not know whether I'll be still sitting around this table in a few months' time, but it has been a privilege to serve in this role, though if I were honest, it has not been without its anxieties. For the moments that I have made incorrect decisions or have made perhaps wrong assertions, I humbly ask for the apologies of others. I would like to thank all the committee members for their commitment and contributions. In particular, I want to pay tribute to Representative Rachel Allen, who is not seeking re-election to the Tawa Community Board this year. In my view, Rachel has been a steadfast voice for the implications of the landfill's operation as a local resident, and her perspective has grounded many of our discussions. Thank you very much for being here, Rachel. I also want to acknowledge our council officers as well as the colleagues from Wellington Water. I recently met with contractors working at the storage tank site, which is not part of the joint venture, though it has massive implications for the joint venture operations. And many of those kaimahi have come to Aotearoa to help deliver this important piece of infrastructure. While our city rightly values social procurement and the benefits of supporting local training and employment, it is equally important that we do not prejudge the commitment or professionalism of anyone on the shovel. The role of this committee, and every member of it, is to focus on the investment decisions and on ensuring the rules around how they operate are robust. The individuals themselves, wherever they come from, deserve our respect for their mahi. My hope has been that in this term as chair, we focus on the ball and not the players. I know that this is something that has not yet been universally accepted, but for my part, this will be a space that upholds mana. Furthermore, I want to thank those in the public who continue to take an interest in this kaupapa. We may not always agree on meeting outcomes, decisions or interpretations, but the public forum is a sacrosanct space. It exists in alignment with our standing orders, and I will continue so long as I am able to protect its integrity. And finally, a gentle reminder, while today might feel like the last day of school, I expect every participant to act in respect, and in turn I will respect all present with the fair and judicious use of the rules when required. Ngā mihi o a tātou katoa me tātou mahi. Let us move to Representative Allen.
Thank you, Jeff, for those kind words. It is my last meeting, like for all of you, but as Jeff said, I'm not seeking re-election, and I fully expect to see the rest of you still sitting around this table in a few months' time. I actually may be here, but I will be sitting over that side of the room if I am. So I just want to thank you all. I want to thank all the officers for all the work that they do in preparing the meeting papers and for putting up with my questions. I want to thank the members of the public who do turn up, particularly the Titahi Bay residents who turn up diligently every meeting. And I want to thank the rest of you around this table, particularly you, Jeff. You've been a great support to me. I remember my first meeting and I was extremely nervous and extremely anxious, and you have made it quite easy, really, to be here and to be part of this. And I know it's the first time a community board member has been here, so I do appreciate that. And I look forward to seeing what happens around this table in the future. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Representative Allen. I'm going to move to the public forum. We have one request for Porirua Kelly.
Before you begin, I've just got one question based on what you've said about the public participation being sacrosanct.
Sacrosanct.
Yeah.
Sacrosanct.
Being that, why is, can you tell me why Wellington Water are not here to hear our public participation?
They are present in the building and will participate in the meeting proper, as has been mentioned in a previous meeting, Porirua. I'm not sure if you were here present for that
No,
meeting.
and I meant to
But
ask
I'll
it
reiterate
last
the
one.
point.
Yeah.
I'll reiterate the point. As I've said already today, this is a sacrosanct space where I will uphold everybody's mana. I am mindful that the process is that the public forum allows the public to come and ask us as representatives to hear them, not officials, but representatives, for we are the ones who are publicly accountable to the actions done by officers. It is our responsibility outside the public forum to hold those individuals who have been tasked with those responsibilities to be held to account as well. There is a very clear distinction between that, and it must be maintained so in accordance with the standing orders. I want to make sure that everyone who is here can do so without any ability of feeling uncomfortable for what they say and trying to discharge their duties. Hence the reason why, for the public forum, the only people who absolutely need to be here are the members of the public who will give their feedback and all of us who have been appointed or elected to hear them.
Thank you for that explanation. So this has only been in the last two meetings, though, because I remember thinking in the last meeting, asking, and I didn't. So you just made this decision.
I have reflected on the conduct of one particular meeting where you were a prominent part of it, Porirua, and I have considered whether or not there is a way to improve our practices to ensure that A, we uphold the mana of every participant in this room, and furthermore, to uphold the kawa, the standing orders of this meeting. Another chair may choose to take a different approach with it, but it is a decision from the chair, and I reflect that in my commentary at the time and again now.
Thank you. I accept your ruling as the chair, and all I was asking for was an explanation.
I understand.
It is unusual, but thank you for your explanation.
Thank you. We'll move on to item 3, public forum. We had one request for public forum from Brian Warburton. Brian, please come up to speak at the table. As you will know, you will have 5 minutes to speak, including questions within that time. A bell will be rung at the 4-minute mark and again at the 5-minute mark. Members can ask questions of clarification only and cannot enter into debate with speakers. Speakers should take note of the restrictions and standing orders, including that the topic of the public forum must fall within the terms of reference of the committee. A speaker cannot speak on an issue that they have previously spoken about, and that matters which are that are subject to separate hearing processes must not be discussed. This being disclosed, I allow you the opportunity to begin. Brian.
Thank you. I'm here to speak to the committee about various aspects of the council's operations. I seek leave to table this document, 15 copies of this document, and for it to be included in the public record. Scope of governance. Inaccuracies about statutory roles of this committee was the subject of my presentation at its 5 September 23 meeting. Statements made at that meeting by Councillor Hayward as chair of this committee follow. In each case, my shaded box represents text which I won't be speaking directly to, so that I can stay within the 5-minute limit. The following is a contradictory quote from Mayor Baker when speaking to the Audit and Risk Committee in June this year. This committee seems to have been confused and unsure about its terms of reference ever since it was constituted by Mayor Baker in 2022 in an attempt to meet the requirements of the joint venture deed. This could explain why this committee has not always adequately met its statutory obligations. Landfill compliance report. I've recently asked PCC staff for a copy of the GW annual compliance report covering the September 23 to October 24 period. I was surprised when PCC staff told me that the report had not been received from GW. It appears staff haven't recently followed this up with GW. After my inquiry, Council has now done so and found that GW has actually not produced an annual compliance report for the landfill. This is astonishing. Both PCC and GW have failed to meet their statutory obligations. Excuse me. The Rukatani Point Pump Station. The current report to this committee refers to only one overflow event at Rukatani Point Pump Station for the April to June 25 period. This is an unsurprising positive outcome from the overdue replacement of the 2 defective pumps, triggered by community advocacy and activism despite some antagonism from some of the members of this committee. However, the committee is still waiting for the 3rd pump to be installed to complete the Pump Station 35 configuration as it was when the pump station was constructed. Transparency and legitimacy. The wastewater treatment plant report is a misnomer. The report should more correctly be entitled Wastewater Treatment Plant and Related Network Infrastructure Report. In any event, the report and its predecessors makes no mention of the fact that the recorded overflow discharges at Rukatani Point are unlawful because there is no consent under Section 15 of the RMA. Excuse me. The latest 6-monthly legislative compliance report is also silent in that regard. A wastewater network consent application was lodged by PCC with GW in 2023. This consent, if granted, would remedy the ongoing breach of the RMA from currently unlawful overflows and coastal discharges. 2 years have passed and there's still been little to no progress. Councillors should be explaining to the community why this is the case. Joint venture deed between Wellington City Council and Porirua City Council. From a previous committee meeting, or might have been a council workshop, I understood staff would be presenting to this committee before the local body election and present a breakdown of how the existing structure would be broken down, i.e. dissolve the joint venture deed. Perhaps that has been deferred. My comments in this regard are attached as Appendix B. By way of a summary, Clause 8 of the deed is clear. Until there is no joint venture deed, i.e. until it is dissolved by some as yet to be determined process, there must be a committee appointed by PCC and WCC. The committee cannot be immediately discharged after the election, and the committee is required to continue with its governance function. Farewell. I suspect this meeting might be farewell to some current councillors, at least in their capacity as members of this committee. I've presented for a few times along with other residents who care about Titahi Bay and who think transparency and accountability in local government is important. 2 recurring themes from my perspective have been a lack of clarity around the scope and responsibility of this committee, confused and vague and sometimes, quite frankly, wrong advice from council officers in Wellington Water. These deficiencies should have been rectified long ago by Mayor Baker, with directions where necessary to Chief Executive Walker. However, overseeing the performance of council committees is one of the Mayor's key and fundamental obligations. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Brian. I note that you had gone over the time, but I didn't want to interrupt you while you finished your point, and I do appreciate that you have brought in documentation affirming that as well. Because it's gone past the 5 minutes, so there is no time for asking clarification questions. However, I will note that we will have an opportunity during the report on the wastewater operation and the separate item on the landfill where questions can be asked of officers in regards to the concerns raised, any concerns that were raised at that time. Porirua Kelly.
Is there a space to raise the deed?
You may choose to bring it up during the discussion on the wastewater treatment plant, or you could during the item on the landfill.
Okay.
I'll allow it in that.
I'll be guided by you.
Inside the scope in that regard. Yes, that'll be fine.
Thank you.
Okay, we will then move on to conflicts of interest. I call for any conflicts of interest that need to be declared. There are none. Notification of extraordinary business. There are no items of extraordinary business. Confirmation of minutes. Item 6. We have been asked to confirm the minutes of the joint committee meetings held on the 6th of May 2025. I will move that we confirm the minutes as a true and accurate record of that meeting. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Duncan. I've now have a move, I have a second. I will now put the motion. All those in favour say aye. To the contrary, it is carried. It is passed. Carried. No, we'll get smoother as the day goes on, eh? Kate the boy. Reports 7.1. Joint Committee Wastewater Treatment Plant Report, 1st of April to the 30th of June. I will move the motion, being that the Joint Committee, one, received the report. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Phelan, thank you. We will have officer comment from Olivia Dovey and Mike Mendoza. And then obviously we also have officials from Wellington Water who are coming in to join us as well. I appreciate their presence here today to answer specific questions in regards to the plant from their perspective. I'll give them a moment, but during that time, Olivia, Mike, do you have any opening comments that consider the items as read consider the items on the agenda as read? Are there any other items to discuss?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. No, we will take the report as read, and I think happy to go straight into questions unless the Wellington Water officers would like to raise anything first.
No, happy to take any questions.
Okay, I'm going to open up some questions, but I just want to cover off one thing that came up during the public forum. There may be other questions in regards to that. There was this commentary around the annual compliance report. Was that with regards to the landfill? Good point. Then there's no point for you to ask that question. We'll come to that in due course. Councillor Phelan, please.
So with regards to the public forum, the question that that Mr. Warburton raised that I would also like clarity for was around the terms of reference. I was at both of those meetings, the one in September where we were told by an officer that we can only speak about joint assets, as in the pump stations, and then at the audit and risk, told by the Mayor that we can talk about all pump stations. So it would be good to get clarity around the terms of reference for this committee.
I'm happy for officers to take comment at this stage for that. So we'll start with that.
So thanks, Mr. Chair. The terms of reference for this committee are published and pretty clear. They do relate to the pump station, to the wastewater treatment plant, and there is some associated infrastructure that does belong. That is not just about the treatment plant itself. There is some adjacent stuff that is actually within scope of the joint committee, and we're happy to kind of provide you with the detail what that actually is. Having said that, this is a network, right? So some of these things are interdependent, and sometimes it's difficult to have a conversation about a wastewater treatment plant without talking about what's happening upstream and downstream of the plant itself. So that's why I think from time to time we have drifted into other parts.
I'm mindful of that response, and I'll allow you to come back to you if you still have clarifications, but I just want to tease this out a little bit here. As I understand it, that yes, there are associated pieces of infrastructure that may not necessarily have strictly been inside the joint venture, but we have throughout this term made mention both in written reports on notice and in answering questions by Wellington Water in regards to those pieces of assets. That has been the practice in the past. I would have not seen that there was any reason to change that approach, albeit the last meeting of this triennium either. Would that be reasonable?
Entirely reasonable, Mr. Chair, yes.
Right. So the second part of this is obviously that while the focus of this committee is on those assets related to the joint venture, we would be mindful as members of this committee to ensure that we devote the majority of our time, the vast majority of the time, with regards to those assets. If it is regards to assets that aren't related to the joint venture strictly, then that should be going back to the full council, for we have no responsibility over the decisions of investment or improvements made by this committee. I think I'll come back to you if you want to answer any more clarifying questions on it, though.
I mean, that was what I was asking for clarification on. So that was my understanding as well. But as in public forum, it was raised around the audit and risk meeting that we were open to talk about all pump station discharges, but now it's been clarified that's not the case.
I think the best way to resolve this issue is to note that I am the chair of this committee. No one outside of this meeting is empowered to be able to speak as to what is on business or not on business, so far as the advice of officers that I seek guidance from and communicate to you all as committee members. Whatever any individual says in another committee cannot overstep the responsibilities that I have to this committee, and as we do as committee members to it as well.
Yeah, that's fair enough. And I think what what Mr. Warburton raised was, and fair point, is that the person who raised it is the mayor, and the mayor is the one who actually put together the terms of reference for the committee. So it was coming from.
I understand that rationale, but I don't want us to get into a debate as to what another member of this council does or doesn't. I'm only here to adjudicate this meeting, but I'm sure that this will be a debate that will continue outside of this meeting as well. Are there any other questions with regards to the terms of reference that perhaps we can go through? Do you not to that? So this is a new question?
Well, I did have a question about the deed. Should I bring it up here?
Feel free to.
So, do you have a signed copy of the latest deed?
Before I go any further, I just want to make sure, because this was covered in material presented to the committee, I recall, after my comments, which were incorrect at the time, and for which I've just apologised even in this meeting about, referenced by Mr. Warburton around the role of the assets held by the joint venture. That was distributed to committee members back at the start of the triennial or thereabouts. Is that correct?
No, I'm talking about the deed.
Yes, but I believe the deed and maps and the description of the joint ventures that were the assets under the joint venture were also incorporated in that document.
So I'm talking about the signed deed.
Sorry?
Yeah, different issue.
Different issue? Okay, in which case I apologise for the confusion caused. Officers may feel free to comment.
So I think, Liz, your question is around the deed from 2008 and the previous one that was
222.
No, and 19. The original deed for the wastewater
Oh, the
treatment
original
plant.
one.
Yep. And there was a question as to 2008 when that deed was to be updated.
Yes.
Yes, which was resolved by this council, but we can't find a record of it having been resolved by the Wellington City Council.
So what I'm asking is there a signed deed when it changed?
Not dated 2008. The signed deed we have is the version 1993, I think is the correct year.
Okay, so the 1998 is the only deed that we have that's signed.
That is fully executed, yes.
That's fully executed.
That is to say, signed by both parties, but if I understood correctly, one party has signed the one that was in 2000.
Correct. Yep.
So in 2008.
Correct.
So isn't there another review that happened after 2008?
Yes, the deed has been reviewed numerous times.
Yes.
Usually at officer level, but has only come to elected members once since 1993, and that was in 2008.
And that's not signed?
It's signed by Porirua City Council, but not by Wellington City.
Oh, okay, because I haven't even seen it signed by Porirua City Council. But just for your information, I did ask Wellington City Council if they had, if they could pull out through their records what the signed deed was. And why I'm asking the question is because what's going to happen to this committee, and what the last meeting that we were at, the papers that we got, it was alluded to that there would be no more joint after this one, that this was going to be the last one because of the new water entity. So I was looking for some further clarification on that. Could you give us that?
I'm happy for officers to answer that question.
For you, Mr Chair, sorry.
Yeah, that's fine.
As best I can, because there's some uncertainty. Yes, we have sought some advice around potential dissolution of the deed, given where we are headed with Three Waters reform. This will be very much a question for the new triennium and the new mayor and councillors to determine, but we felt it prudent to look at what the options might be with respect to this committee and the advice that we would give to the mayor and the council post the election.
Okay, thank you, because the reason why I asked that is that when I saw it in our minutes, I asked Wellington City Council if they knew anything about it, and they didn't. They hadn't been advised anything at an officer level. And then in the public, we were hearing, well, what's going on? So that's why I'm asking for clarification. But it seems like where you've landed is nowhere really yet, eh? You're going to
Well,
wait till
it's
the
for
new
elected members, the new triennium, yes.
Okay, that makes sense.
In that regard, I think the importance of asking that clarified question is fine. I'm assuming that one of the reasons why Wellington City Council officers may not have at this stage received that information or had the opportunity to feed in it is that the Secretariat services are handled, for this committee, are handled by Porirua City Council and not Wellington City in the first instance.
Actually, no, we actually have been in touch with Wellington City Council
Now
officers.
you have.
Have been for the last 6 months or so, but maybe just that we're not talking to. I'll probably be talking to the infrastructure people. Typically, that kind of stuff is handled by the democratic services people. So there's a disconnect in there somewhere. But we're most certainly been. I can advise you, we've most certainly been dealing with Wellington City Council officers.
Okay, thank you. I was talking to your equivalent. Yes. Can I have another question?
Yep.
Is that all right?
That's all right.
Okay, this one is to Wellington Water through you, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
Could you give us an update on what's happening with is it the third pump at Rukatani?
We're just working through those, the options of how to go for a further upgrade, whether it's 3 pumps or 4 pumps. So the current hold-up has been that investigating the condition of the pipework that's downstream and what pressures that's capable of taking safely. So we haven't currently decided on third or even more pumps.
Okay, well, that's interesting because I didn't know there was talk of a 4th pump. But my concern is around the discharges that are continuing to occur. And what we heard today in public participation was without any consent. So can you expand on that for me, please? For you, Mr. Chair.
Well, there's a large number of discharges in Porirua City Council, which from the wastewater system, which
Yes,
which are currently
specifically I'm
unconsented.
talking about Rukatani.
Well, it's the same as the other discharges from the Porirua City Council network.
So then none of them are consented.
There's some of the discharges are consented through the stormwater consent, but the remainder that go direct to coastal or freshwater, there was an application lodged with Regional Council some 2 years ago, and it's currently in awaiting decision on progression of that consent application.
In order to clarify as well, this has been a point that has been raised in several of the meetings in this term, and I'm sure it has been in the previous term as well as a member of that committee. The issue with regards to those assets that are not currently part of the resource consent for the joint venture and do not have their own stormwater discharge consent has been an issue that has been sitting for some time, and obviously this still has relevance for the overall quality of the water in the bay. No, there's no doubt about that. And the status of it is that they are all equally as unlawful as each other because none of them have been placed under a unified consent to address this. Do you have any commentary with regards to the current status of the application that has been lodged, knowing that it has been a significant period of time and it does then lead into much larger decisions of an incoming council or perhaps more appropriately pending decisions by council members, a new water service delivery entity in meeting those expectations under a consent if approved?
The resource consenting and the RMA situation has probably got more complicated in recent months. And the Natural Resource Plan, which Regional Council had a Plan Change 1 to implement the respective Whaitua implementation plans, has, as I understand, been put on hold for the time being while the central government policy changes are worked through. That's not to say that, Porirua City Council, Wellington Water are not doing anything about reducing those discharges. The city centre investment and to a lesser extent, the Rukatane pump upgrades are testament to work that work is still going on, but the consenting is still in a very difficult regulatory environment.
My understanding, sorry, I just want to get a clarification before I go back to Porirua Kelly, is that my understanding is that with regards to Plan Change 1, the decision by, and again, this is not for you to answer, it would be for officers perhaps, was that that decision was made by regional council before the announcement by central government to pause on any work regarding those types of planning. So this was a decision that was passed by the council, that council, not central government necessarily.
Yeah.
That's correct, and both Porirua City Council, Wellington City Council and Wellington Water had given evidence to the hearings, at which point the pause was pressed. Yeah, they pressed pause. Yeah.
Okay, so it's important to know, and I don't want to be flippant when I say this, it is important to know where the bodies are buried, so to speak, in terms of whose responsibility it is at what point in this process, so as to not conflate things, although bearing in mind I did that earlier with one of the other issues. Porirua Kelly, please continue.
Thank you. So if I could just, to be clear, when I'm saying that I'm specifically talking about Rukatane, I'm not trying to undermine in any way the discharges, the rest of the discharges that are happening around the city. But what I did want to make really clear is the importance of Rukatane and the impact that it has on the people here in Porirua, and not just the Titahi Bay community, because people from all over Porirua, all over Wellington actually, use Titahi Bay Beach for sporting activities, for gathering kaimoana, for swimming. And so that's why you just said about Rukatane in a lesser, your words were in a lesser sense of, well, you spoke to it in a lesser meaning that it was less important than anything else. And what I wanted to stress to you is of all of the ones that we have in our city, the continual discharges that happen at Rukatane Point impact negatively on the health and well-being of our people here and on our kaimoana as well. And you know, we had to come here and we had our gallery full with our children, with our surfers, with our older people, all in one voice saying how it impacted so negatively. So that's why I continue to ask, where are we up to with resolving the problem so that we stop these illegal discharges into our coastal waters?
I'm aware that you've made the explanation, and I think you've already asked the same question a second time, so I'm not going to ask officers to answer the same question again. They are free to respond if they wish to.
Well, he didn't really answer it the first time, though, did he?
But I'm also mindful that in order to maintain good order in this meeting, I don't want questions that go on for so long that they could be considered comments. Let's keep the questions succinct and to the point, and so that we'll have them on the record. Their response, I'm the chair, I'll be speaking at the moment. The questions are succinct and to the point so that we can get clarification. You, as a member of this committee, will be given time for commentary in regards to what you're hearing, because I think that your sentiments are well established and shared by every member of this committee as well. It should be, therefore, not required to go back through that again on every clarification question. That's what I'm trying to get to here, so we can have a meeting in good order. So as to assist you, I'll give you the opportunity to ask a question to officers and to the officials, and then we can proceed ahead. Then note that I have Representative Allen on the speaking list.
Okay,
as well.
with respect, Mr. Chair, thank you for your assistance. But if there hadn't been an interruption, I might have had a more succinct answer. And my question is, what is going to happen then? You're talking about, I'm specifically talking about the third pump, because your answer to that is that you're thinking about a fourth pump, and we never heard about a fourth pump.
Again, I'm not going to allow the commentary. There's a question. Can we get the answer on that, and then we'll come back to allow you to have the commentary later on as part of the meeting.
As we've said in the report, we're still working through the investigations and scoping. One of the options is to put a fourth pump. There were a number of options being considered. With regard to my comment about with the word lesser about Rukatane Point, that was not meant to imply that was in any way lesser. It was referring to the scale of improvement, the reduction of overflows between the two sites. So my apologies for any misunderstanding there.
Thank you. Thank you for that clarity.
I have a question to follow up on that. There was discussion in a meeting of TPK where this project had been mentioned around the possibility that there was a re-evaluation of the requirements of that station and whether or not a third pump would be necessary or some other solution. And I remember my questioning in that meeting was, to what end would we get a time frame on that kind of discussion or review to be brought back to decision makers so as to assist us in understanding the progress of that work?
Thank you. Yeah, good question.
Could someone answer that part of the question, perhaps?
We had been hoping to make quicker progress, but as we've referred to, the rising main, the issue of what pressures the rising main downstream of the pump station can take have come up, and we've had to undertake additional investigation into that.
Okay.
Last question.
Porirua Kelly.
Last question. I've missed it, but where in our papers have you referenced the fourth pump?
We haven't specifically referenced a fourth pump in the papers. We've referenced investigation and scoping of the upgrade are ongoing.
Okay, thank you. You can understand why it seems like the solution seems to be too big to resolve.
Or perhaps the line of completion seems to be far more less certain. But anyway, we'll allow comment at the end. Representative Allen, did you? Okay, Councillor Philo.
Okay, I've got a few questions. I will try and keep them succinct. The first one is, I'm just going to follow up. So with the point around Rokutane Point pump. Now, I heard you say, Steve, that you're looking at potentially upgrading with a third pump. But my understanding is that wouldn't be an upgrade. That would actually be just reinstating the pump to its full configuration, which is what I heard a member of public say. So can you just clarify, is the full configuration of that original pump, does it contain 3 pumps?
The original configuration contains 3 pumps, okay, and with space for a 4th pump. So they anticipated the population going from 10,000 to 15,000 in the original design. With the current pumps, the 2 that have been replaced with larger units. So there's been more flow than the original design of those pumps. So there has been an upgrade. We've put bigger pumps in than the original pumps for the 2 so far,
okay,
that have been replaced.
So with regards to this third pump then, if those other 2 have got more capacity, are you saying that the third pump is not as necessary as it would have been originally?
Yes, the 2 new pumps produce more flow than the 2 original pumps would have.
Does that also take into account, though, that we have, obviously when that first came about, was first installed, there would have been less of a population? So does that take into account the growing population since that pump was installed to now?
The current population is still within the original 10,000 population that the pump station was designed for. Okay. The problem's been that the pipeworks have got more leaky, and so there's a lot more stormwater getting in, so there's more flow that you'd expect for that population.
Okay. Hey, thanks for clarifying that, Steve. It would be great too if you could please just clarify a little bit more. You were talking about the rising main pressures and the pump work downstream as being an issue for affecting Rokutane Point. Can you just go into a bit more detail about and just clarify that, please?
So with the increase of the pump size and the same pipework being down, getting more flow through the same pipework means that there's more pressure on that pipework because the pipework's the same size. And so we're getting close to the design pressure of that pipework, and it's a fairly early polyethylene, which is a bit technical, but we've just stopped to have someone have a look at that particular pipework and try and get an assessment of whether it can handle more pressure.
So how old is that current current pipe?
It was installed in the late 1980s.
1980s. So what would be, are you looking at replacing the pipe? If, like, what would be the solution to this issue?
One solution could be to line it, put a structural liner through it, and the other solution could be to just not increase the pressure too much to maintain pressure at a safe or acceptable level.
Okay.
Can I just ask a question in regards to that response? If in that scenario where a choice is made to not necessarily increase pressure flow or to increase pump pressure so as to not allow a potential break of that pipe, that still does have implications for anything upstream of the pump as well, in terms of storage tanks capacity, possibility of discharge events, and so forth, if there is a sudden increase in flows beyond the design.
Yeah, we're trying to balance what comes in, what goes out.
Right.
Absolutely.
Obviously, notwithstanding the point that has been raised before about the discharge overflow events. My other question, just to clarify as well, rather than I've always thought that the issue was that it's not merely about the pump flow and number of pumps; it's about pump flow, pump pressure, to handle existing flow, but also to deal with peak periods and redundancy should there be a pump failure. So all of those factors need to be considered in the delivery of this upgrade or improvement, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Cool, thank you. To follow on from that, because those are really great things to consider, and I'm sure you're considering all of that. And with respect, what we've seen in this report, it's very similar. The update is very similar to every report, and so there is a level of frustration in the community. It seems like it's been sort of brushed over. So, are you able to give a bit more certainty around where to, for like some timelines for scope, some timelines for when it's delivered, please?
I can't give you a timeline right now. I can tell you that there's budget in this financial year for design and next financial year for a nominal construction upgrade, and we're just working through exactly what that will be at the moment. We have to go through this process before we spend that money.
It may be possible for council officers to provide some commentary based on this question was raised by me at Te Puna Kōrero around the timeframes of report back to the council members, not necessarily this committee, but that would be of a very similar vein of what you're asking, Councillor Filo.
And the response we gave at the time was it's our intention to come back to you to come back to council in the new triennium.
Right. Councillor Filo?
I do have a couple more questions, different parts of the report. It's okay if someone else.
Okay,
gives me a break.
Okay, fine, fair enough. I have got Councillor Duncan, and then I'll come back to you, Porirua Kelly. Councillor Duncan.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. My one relates to discharges. On page 26, item 22, the duration of discharge events. It says the duration does not always mean discharges occurring continuously. Are we able to tell which are continuous and which are not continuous?
What we generally do is report a discharge when it occurs. If a discharge is intermittent and reoccurs within a 24-hour period, it is considered a single discharge. But what we attempt to do is indicate how long that intermittent discharge occurs during that whole period of the single discharge.
Okay. So yes. Great. Okay, and page 28, item 31, pump station discharges. The city centre overflows there. Were they as a result of that broken pipe you've just had to to fix there at that pump station? Like,
No, that happened just after the reporting period. These were a result of wet weather, just overloading the system.
okay.
At city centre. There was a dry weather equipment failure, one noted at Tangari, a short duration.
Yeah, that's an interesting one as well. What happened there with Tangari?
I don't actually have the details of that one. Might have to go back to the maintenance.
It was
group.
pretty brief.
It was, yeah.
Okay. No, look, that's covered it pretty well for me. Thanks.
Okay, Porirua Kelly.
So mine is a follow-up question, and it's really about me trying to understand what's happening at Rukutane and with the pipes. So are we saying that the first two, because I'm assuming they're a lot smaller, even though you're saying that they still are within the capacity of the 10,000 that they were originally built, then the third one, and what you're proposing for the fourth pump?
The two pumps that have been installed are bigger.
Okay.
They've got more kilowatt rating.
So is the problem that the pressure that's coming through, is that a part of the problem?
No, if we had a third pump of the same size operating,
Yes.
that would increase the pressure. That's the issue we're just working through.
So we want that to happen.
We don't want that pipe to fail. Is what we obviously want more flow to get through, but we're just trying to understand the implications.
I appreciate your patience. I'm trying to understand what's happening. So you said that there was an option that something else that is impacting negatively on it is the leaks, and that a solution could be a liner. Is that realistic, or is that like a huge amount to?
We haven't got too far down looking at putting a liner down there. We have put liners down pressure pipes before. They're not, they're not cheap.
But does that stop the leaks?
No, the leaks are back in the network, in the
Both
in
the
the
private
houses
and the
and the
public
roads.
network.
So what's the point of the liner then?
The point of the liner would be to protect the pressure pipe that goes from the pump station to the treatment plant from bursting.
And that would then enable, as I understand it, would enable the potential for pumps that would allow higher pressure to use that same pipe with a lining to allow it to go to the treatment plant.
To the treatment plant.
If the stakes are that if that pipe breaks, then obviously it's a big problem. If the pump station cannot increase the pressure flow through that pipe, then the risk of everything that's coming towards it will lead to discharges from that pump station, which have been highlighted are not part of the resource discharge consent, and that there are multiple ways to solve this problem, including improving renewals of pipes, the repairs to existing public and private networks to prevent I&I, as well as improving the resilience and capacity of the existing pumps to allow more flow to go up to the wastewater treatment plant, and as well, as I understand it, a current assessment of the pipe that connects the pump station to the wastewater treatment plant, so as to make sure that whatever pressure increases are being made by upgraded pumps will not lead to the pipe breaking. Am I about right? Cool.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Clear as mud.
Yeah, no, you were clear, actually. Thank you. It's obvious, too, that poo is really expensive business, isn't it?
Quite right. Well, I'll comment at the end, but yes.
So my last question then, and this is probably of you, Mr. Chair, you might be able to help me with this. No, I'm not being cheeky. I'm asking you. The extra work that went into the annual plan for Rukutane, has that happened?
I'll allow officers, but I
upgrade?
understand that there was additional budget assigned.
You know, when everybody came and...
Yes, in regards to the long-term plan and the additional and the proposed amendment to the LTP to enable.
Oh, I thought it was in your annual plan.
It was the LTP 2 years ago. But yes, still, it was a decision made by full council. I'll allow officers to answer to that part.
So some of that funding's been drawn down for the two pumps that Steve's talked about. The remainder is still sitting in there. And that's part of the advice you want to come back to council with in the uranium is what's the best use of that funding.
I would also point out it would be accurate that details on this specific project have been considered part as a specific exclusion, which is to say that there is specific reporting on this to the full council as part of Te Puna Kōrero's regular reporting, so as to show that work and allow representatives, councillors, to ask questions about that project specifically as well. So there is a paper trail sitting within the full council for Porirua City Council as part of it with regards to that project as well, so as to show that. So there's, while we could have a kōrero here, there's also another work also going on beyond the scenes by trying to hold accountability.
Well, thank
around
you for
this.
that. That's reassuring. But it'd be even better when it's fixed and we got no more discharges going.
Here. Any other questions? Councillor Phil.
I'd like to talk a bit more about, well, not a bit more, I'd like to now talk about the ammonia. So if, just on point 8, the last line, it says that the effect of the effluent ammonia exceeded to the receiving environment remains minor. And then in point 13, it talks about 4,500 milligrams a litre is still above the design target level of 3,500 milligrams a litre. And while it's less than what it was, what I want to know is, when it's 1,000 milligrams a litre over what is the design level, is that minor? Do you consider that minor? Or why do you consider that minor, really, is probably the question. Why do you consider it minor?
So one's the level of mixed liquor, so they're suspended solids, so that's the amount of solids inventory in the process. And so we have a set point that we aim for. The other is the actual measure of ammonia. The two aren't the same.
Oh, the
We're
two
talking
aren't the
about
same.
two
Okay.
completely different things.
So my next question is back to point 8, which is around where the actual ammonia, or where the samples were taken. So that table that you've got there on page, it's your page 23. Yeah, page 23. So those are areas within different parts of the beach where you've measured samples to see how much ammonia concentrate is that right?
Yes, that's right.
Okay, this is actually a question that's just sort of been emailed to all of us through the committee from a member of the public. Now, she's said that one of the consent conditions, consent condition number 6, is that the consent holder shall, to the satisfaction of the manager, identify a suitable place to sample wastewater after it leaves the treatment plant, but prior to it entering Rukutane Point outfall, and that sampling point shall be used for the sampling required by conditions for 7 to 10. And the condition 7 to 10 references the ammonia and that it needs a sample from the specific area with regards to the ammonia levels. So can you just give some clarity around that? Because to me that would seem like that those samples aren't being taken from the consent condition, and that would look like, where the UV is and the water that comes after the UV, I would suspect that would be where the water would be sampled with regards to the consent conditions.
There's samples taken from both points. So there's samples taken at the end of the treatment process.
Yeah.
And I think it's weekly for ammonia. We analyse what's coming out of the treatment plant, and daily out of the treatment plant for organic and solids and fecals. And then in addition to that, there's these sample points out, on the coast,
Yep.
which after the treated effluent has mixed, that's what those numbers are on that 0.8. So they're nominally 200 metres, but just because of the rocky coast, the sample point that was agreed was only 140 metres away to the east. So there's samples taken both at the treatment plant and in the environment around the coast, and also, as we've got here, at a control site which is further away to show what the background levels in the environment are.
So is there a reason why we didn't get to see the sample at the actual treatment plant?
I believe they were requested and emailed out last week for
So
the
I
ammonia.
requested a copy of it, but it was because for my own clarity, rather than for the sake of the committee. I'm happy for it to be forwarded on. It was just more about trying to understand the long-term, longitudinal study, because obviously there's a very narrow window of results that were reported, and I wanted to know what the fuller picture was. So yeah, happy to pass that on.
I think we're on the same
Yeah,
thinking line.
but suffice to say that the data in there, by my recollection, was that yes, the ammonia levels are going down. However, there's a pesky problem at the end of this, which is that it still hasn't reduced as much as perhaps the community would want it to at this stage. There is the rub. What additional, and I'll take a moment to ask a question here, what additional steps are Wellington Water officers considering around trying to further reduce the ammonia report rates that are currently happening at the plant?
Well, firstly, I'd say that during the winter months, the colder temperatures, it does make it harder for the biological process to remove ammonia from the process. We've had, from the data that was supplied last week, we have noted that there has been 6 occasions in the last sort of month or so, 6 weeks, where ammonia levels have been above the 6 milligrams per litre, and that means that we're required to investigate that. The consent allows us 9 months to provide that investigation. We won't take that long. So what we're planning to do is to review the actions that were undertaken from the previous review when the ammonia was high, the actions undertaken to reduce that and to improve the process, and just see what actions result from that.
Follow-up question on that. I appreciate the fact that that effort has been triggered because of the noting of those incidents, and that this is the last meeting of the triennium, and sometime before the election and the decisions made by council, which I can't get into, when would the council or the responsible bodies be able to access that insight from Wellington Water and any subsequent decisions around additional actions to be made? I think we do need to have some idea of when this timeframe, what the timeframe is on this.
We haven't established when that investigation work will be undertaken at this stage. We've just noted this week and let the regulator, or in the process of letting the regulator know. As stipulated in the consent, we have 9 months. What we would plan to do, I think, is to sort of let the monitor the ammonia levels for the next few months, and on the basis that we're at or around or below that 6 milligrams per litre threshold, we would see how that went as the weather warms up. But the request will be made to our consultant to review the actions that were taken from the last review.
Okay. And notwithstanding the fact that the data set that I'm having again to distribute covers the period from April to July, so basically the reporting period, is it possible for officers now to give some clarity as to what is the historical baseline level, notwithstanding that there may be seasonal fluctuations in this level? Is it close to the 6 line, or is it well below the 6 line, typically speaking, beyond the period before April of this year? Oh, sorry, last year.
I can't give you a clear response to that, but I'm happy to provide that. We can go back and look at the data set prior to the last 12 months and provide that for you.
I don't have any more questions on this one, but I just wanted to bring up something before I go for last call on questions. Just so I'm clear here, with regards to the discussion around the signed deed copies, have those been distributed to members of this committee as part of its documentation during this triennium? And if not, is it source available online for that to be accessed at the very least?
I'm not sure, but I don't see why we wouldn't do that, share the public documents.
Okay. So I think it might be just...
If we could have a copy, it'd be lovely.
Yeah, I think just to square that part of that off, I think it would probably be good to have that disclosure actioned. Last call. Any more questions, Pārtai? No? Okay, before we end this item, we're going to have an opportunity if anybody wants to give any commentary on it, although I will note Porirua Kelly's strident and firm views, which I stand shoulder to shoulder on with regards to the impacts of the decisions we make in terms of the water quality, not necessarily from discharges at the plant, but to discharges at the pump station, which remain a vexed issue. Any other comments? Councillor Fiddle.
I just want to go on the record, since this is our last meeting of the term, to say thank you and acknowledge the residents actually and the public who come here pretty much to every meeting, and they prepare, look at this. This is pages of work, and they read all the reports in their own time. They are not getting paid to do this, but they care deeply about our beach and our waterways. And I just want to acknowledge and say thank you. And that it's really, it has also, what do I want to say? The Rukotane Point pump was because of the public coming in and raising that awareness. So it is meaningful and impactful, and thank you.
Councillor Duncan.
Yeah, similarly, I want to acknowledge the work of Wellington Water here. We know they're working with budgets. They asked us for a certain amount of money. We gave them probably not even half that amount of money, and they're still managing to keep everything working. And when you look at the Appendix A at the end of this, the number of risk category 1s changing to orange or green is fantastic. It's a great effort, so thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Duncan. Any other comments at this stage? I will take the comment and we'll go to vote. Again, thank you, committee members, for your questions. A very large thank you to Wellington Water. This may be the very last time I get to do it as the chair, so I don't want to presume what the outcome of the vote is. But thank you for coming in and trying to answer our questions. There seems to be a couple of things that will ask for some clarity to be sent through to the committee. And again, I will be happy to send through the spreadsheet, but it seems to have triggered responses from officers and officials, which is, I suppose, encouraging in that regard. We're not at the end of it, but at least maybe to not evoke Churchill twice in 2 weeks, the end of the beginning. All right, this motion has been moved. It has been seconded. We're going to go to the motion. All those in favour say aye. Contrary, no. Abstentions, carried. Thank you very much for coming in. Okay. 7.2, Spicer Landfill Joint Committee Update, April to June 2025. I will move the motion, being that the Joint Committee, 1, receive the report. Do I have a seconder? I'm pretty sure I have to take it from is it? Yeah. Well, it's happening now, Councillor Duncan. You're now seconding it. So obviously the item has been on notice on the in the agenda. This is an opportunity for officers to speak in addition to any items not on a notice, and then we will go to questions. David?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. There is an update I'd like to give, bearing in mind this is outside of the current reporting period. As many of you will know, we have had a pollution event occurring in Mitchell Stream just downhill of the landfill. And at the request of the chair, I've put together a timeline as we understand it up till yesterday, just to brief the committee at a reasonably high level of the events around. So if you'll bear with me, I'll run through this.
Please. So
17 July, Wellington Water report notifications of stream discoloration near the landfill. They've contacted Enviro NZ, who manage on site, and Enviro NZ confirmed the discharge was from the sediment pond and it was not leachate or wastewater. On the 22nd of July, Greater Wellington Regional Council monitoring officer called us at PCC, advised of a notification from a member of the public of discoloration and algae growth in Mitchell Stream in the vicinity of the sediment pond discharge pipe. They advised that they were to meet the notifier on Friday 25 July on site and invited PCC officers to attend that meeting. On the 23rd of July, PCC staff visited the site and confirmed the notification for ourselves, and we determined that the likely source was the sediment pond discharge pipe. On the same day, our standard monthly monitoring was done, but because of the notification, we requested additional samples to be taken near that sediment pond outlet. On the 24th of July, the next day, officers walked over the landfill site with a contractor working on the new cell and determined that there was leachate breaking out from a slope further up the hill, which had direction of travel into the sediment pond, not into the leachate system where it is meant to be. On the 25th of July, quite early in the morning, based on unconfirmed but high likelihood of the stream receiving that leachate, we placed warning signs around Spicer Botanical Park, advising people to keep themselves and their pets out of the stream, and advised the wider public through an urgent all-channel communication. In mid-morning, we issued instructions to Enviro NZ to undertake the following remedial works to commence that day and be complete by the 1st of August. One, they were to divert all sediment pond inflow from the sediment pond into the leachate pond in the event that it was leachate entering the sediment pond and then into the stream. They were to investigate leachate breakout within the landfill to the west of the active tipping face as the probable main source of contamination. They were to remediate 2 less severe leachate breakouts below the Cell 3A works as possible minor sources of contamination, and they were to conduct investigations and immediate remediation of all surface drains. Again, 25th of July at midday, Greater Wellington met with the notifier on site. PCC staff attended. We walked up Mitchell Stream. Greater Wellington's ecologists took samples at various points along the stream and from the small branch which feeds the stream from the sediment pond discharge site. The results of 31st July, results of the 23 July testing were received, and there were elevated contaminants reported at the sediment pond outlet. On the 6th of August, we report that normal macroinvertebrate life in the stream, that is the basic animal life in the stream, appears to be unaffected. However, there is other plant matter growing in the stream as well, possibly from nutrients in the leachate that shouldn't be there. We requested that Greater Wellington share their findings from their investigation on 25 July to help us to inform our actions, including updating the public on the level of risk. 7th August, we took samples from 4 points around the sediment pond area for on-site fast testing. That's testing we can do on-site, doesn't have to go off to the laboratory. Testing confirmed indicators of leachate, however, at lower levels than previously found. 18th of August, the stream has become noticeably clearer. Follow-up works on a couple of the leachate diversion spots are still underway. And finally, we will leave the signs in place until there is no further leachate indicated as present in the sediment pond, and we have had no test results or outcomes of any investigation from Greater Wellington yet.
Okay. I note that you've rereading that time frame, and I appreciate that you've had to go into great detail about that, so thank you for that. Would it be possible to make sure that that document is distributed to the members of the committee? Excellent. So we'll do that. That's down. I'm going to go to questions. Representative Allen.
Can I ask questions on that document?
You can, noting that you may not be able to get as many answers at this stage, but however, my instruction to officers will be that any questions that cannot be answered in this item will be endeavoured to be answered and sent to the committee members. Is that satisfactory, Representative Allen?
Yep, that's fine.
Okay.
So first of all, my understanding is that the first complaint about the stream was laid on the 10th of June, and it took some time for any action to be taken. Multiple complaints were made. You mentioned just in your report that on the 23rd of July it was the standard monthly monitoring inspection anyway. So was a monthly monitoring inspection made around about the 23rd of June? And if so, what was noted?
Yes, we did monitoring for the June period. However, I would like to reiterate that we hadn't been advised of this until Greater Wellington contacted us on the 22nd of July.
Okay, but on the 23rd of June, what was noted about the stream, the colour, the discharge, the smell,
I can add that to this report.
Okay, but you can't tell me now what was noted? Okay. The other thing is the consent condition states that there was a weekly inspection of stormwater diversion drains and still ponds. Do we have a record of whether those were carried out every week in June through to the end of July?
From June to July, yes, we do have the records that come in both from EnviroWaste on site and also our consultants, Tonkin Taylor. So I can do an amalgamation of the June, July and what we have so far in August, pull that all together.
And so those inspections, do they take samples? What do they look for?
The inspections you're referring to are visual. The ones done within the stream on both groundwater and surface water, they're actual samples that are taken and sent to a laboratory.
So there would have been samples taken in June?
Yes, there's constantly samples being taken, yep.
So we'd have those results as well? Okay. Now, can I continue with questions on the general report?
Go right ahead.
Right, okay. So we'll go back to the beginning then. Okay, on page 33 and 34 of the report, first it's just a small comment on page 34 which leads to a question, which is that the dominant noise source in Tawa is State Highway 1, traffic on State Highway 1. I would just like to make note that if you live on the western side of Tawa, the dominant noise is the machinery working at the landfill. Okay, I can't hear State Highway 1. I can hear the diggers and the whatever they are going all day long from inside my house. So that's just a comment. What I would like to know about the fan, though, does it require its own resource consent conditions?
No.
No. Okay, thank you. Going to page 34. The 5th of May odour incident. So I followed this up with you, David, via email to confirm how many complaints had been made, and you came back to me and said that 8 complaints had been received on that day. However, if you move to page 75, which is the report from Greater Wellington Regional Council, or the letter from Greater Wellington Regional Council, the officer who attended states that 5 complaints were received by the time she drove out to investigate. And if you turn the page, she goes, another 7 notifications were received while she was assessing the odour. So that gives a total of 12, not 8, 50% more. I followed up with that officer to see where those complaints came from, whether they were made on the ground or whatever. And she confirmed to me that 11 of them came via the PCC call centre. So I'm not quite sure why PCC now only has 8 complaints. Greater Wellington have 12. And this again raises the question I've asked in the past, is how can we be certain that all complaints are being captured and recorded, both obviously in the system, because there's obviously 4 of them have gone missing, but also if I'm number 15 ringing one night, how do I know the operator isn't going to just go, yes, listen to me, and then think, well, I'm not going to log that because I've already logged 14. Where is the audit to check that every phone call is logged?
With respect to the after-hours service, actually, can I take these one at a time?
Yeah, sorry, there's probably a few questions thrown in together then.
The first one with respect to the number of complaints that were taken on Monday the 5th of May, so the spreadsheet data that we have, and I have copied you in on the table that we had recorded for that day, there is some columns missing off there which relate to the time and date that it was actually taken versus the time that it was observed. There is a possibility that we had some taken the next day.
Not if she got 12 on the night.
If she got 12 on the night, I'm going to have to go into that table and check, which leads me on to the second thing, which is the process that we've got through our own call centre will be picking up all of them because there is an amount of automation through our own internal system that's related to the picking up of the phone, and as soon as the thing is entered by the call taker, it's there. With regards to the after-hours centre, I'm unaware of how our call centre monitors or audits those. They take calls for all council activities, not just the landfill. Without checking with our call centre or talking to corporate support, I don't know the level to which they audit those. However, in the past, I have gone back to the call centre manager and said, we think we've missed a call, or this call has been answered or assigned incorrectly, and they will go back to the after-hours call centre and get that fixed up.
Just because I want to answer a follow-up question before you carry on, is there a possibility that at any stage by any of the call centres that there has been a miscoding of the inquiry from the public in such a way that it is still present but it has not been coded correctly? If that is a possibility, how is that to be resolved?
Yes, there is a possibility. And in fact, Wellington City Council has done it in the past as well, where they've recorded wastewater treatment plant complaints as landfill complaints and vice versa. So that is a possibility. And having raised that possibility, I suspect maybe that the monitoring officer may have received calls from Wellington City Council.
She stated very clearly they were from
From us.
PCC. Apart from one was direct to Greater Wellington, but 11 came from PCC.
Did you want to carry on your line of questioning? Because I don't know if there's any more questioning on that. He's going to come back to you with answers on that.
Okay. If we can move on to what's next on my list? Page 37, point 19 and 20. Most actions are complete and there's one large action yet to commence. So as of today, can you tell me how many actions are still to be completed and whether the large action has been completed? Because I seem to think that one's probably got some responsibility for the ongoing odour that we are experiencing almost every day at the moment.
So all of the actions that we requested Enviro to do in response to the 5th of May event have been completed except for the one large one. We're currently working through with another contractor to do that. That action is to completely relay the cover on the eastern slope, which is that slope that faces closest to the Tawa boundary. And what we've decided to do with that eastern slope is to lay it as if it were the very final cap. That requires quite a lot of material that we don't actually have on site. So where we're at the moment is that the contractor we've approached is currently pricing that up for us, and we would be asking them to just get underway as soon as possible once they've got materials that they can source and then place down on that slope.
Sorry, Representative Allen, I'm going to ask one question in here because I just want to be clear. In your answer, David, you were suggesting that the solution would be as if it were a final cap. This is in addition to what would be and would be considered the final cap. Is that correct?
No.
It is going to be laid in exactly the same way in which you would lay a final cap.
Okay. Representative Allen?
Do we have a time frame for this?
We would hope that it would be underway within weeks.
Do we have a definition of weeks? Is that 1 week or 30 weeks?
Without speaking back to the project manager responsible, I can get you that answer very quickly, however.
I think it'd be useful to communicate that one back. Yep. Representative Allen?
Thank you. Just find my page.
If you want, I'll take a moment to ask a question.
You can ask for one.
With regards to the report that you presented, in addition to the item on notice with regards to the leachate issue, are there any issues around the capacity of the current leachate pond, which the sediment ponds are feeding into currently as part of the mitigation practices? Is there any concern that we have around the leachate pond becoming overfilled?
No, the leachate pond won't be overfilled. The restriction is the trade waste pipe that runs out of the leachate pond and enters the wastewater network. So the action, and we have done this a couple of times in the past, the last time we had to do it was when there was a police operation looking for a missing person. We drained the sediment pond by pumping everything into the leachate pond. The sediment pond is a great deal larger. And of course, it takes rainfall fairly immediately. So the balance is just pumping the leachate at a steady enough pace that the downstream wastewater pipe is not being overflowed.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, Representative Allen, hope you're ready to go.
That's okay. Yep. Point 28 on page 39, saying bad weather has delayed the construction or the earthworks for cell 3A. Do we know how much longer that's going to take? You say it's likely to extend beyond July 25. So is it finished or is it going to take longer?
Yeah, it will definitely, we're put beyond July 25 now. It hasn't put any risk upon the overall timeline for the opening of cell 3A. We have slip time built in for inclement weather. Fortunately, we've still got a little slip time left. So the overall timeline is not at risk yet.
Okay. Just going back to that cell 3A, just your earlier additional report about Mitchell Stream, you made a comment that there were a couple of small leachate leaks under the lining of cell 3A, I think you said. Is this likely to become a problem with cell 3A, or is that normal?
Yeah, so for clarity, we have the existing active tipping area. We're building cell 3A below that. Then there is a slope down to the new sediment pond, and in that slope is where we're seeing some leachate breakout. Cell 3A is not at a point yet where it has been lined. That leachate will be coming through from the existing landfill. So there is a design which is being prepared and presented to a contractor for pricing up, which is to relieve some of that pressure, take that leachate away from there, skirt around the sediment pond and carry it to the leachate pond.
Okay. Okay, next question. What was that one? That was the... Right, just a general question. It was raised in public participation and I was also aware of it. The compliance report for 2023 to 2024 by Greater Wellington Regional Council is outstanding. My understanding is that it is written after Porirua City Council supplies Greater Wellington with their annual report on Spicer Landfill. So can you confirm that the annual report by PCC was submitted and when it was submitted?
Yes, that was submitted in early November 2024.
In November 24. Okay, thank you for that. And do we have an update? Do you have an update on when we can expect the compliance report?
I have not had an update on Greater Wellington's compliance report back to us.
Just a follow-up question in regards to that. What is the typical period between these periods? Obviously, we have requirements for reporting. So there is a requirement for 3 months. How frequently has there been an instance where this has not been met?
Can you clarify with the requirement for 3 months? You're talking about the PCC report to
I
Greater
was
Wellington?
talking about the reporting period deadline for the compliance report, the final report. And any deadline, any delay between the deadline and that. I assume that's what we mean by the 3 months.
So our report to Greater Wellington has always been provided within that time.
I'm not worrying about ours. I'm worried about the
Greater Wellington one.
My understanding from 2022 is that it is the compliance report from Greater Wellington Regional Council is due to be completed 3 months after PCC submits its annual report on Spicer Landfill to Greater Wellington Regional Council. So if you submitted it on the 1st of November, it should have been back by the December, January, February, 1st of February. So it's now well overdue.
It is well overdue, but I'm just trying to ascertain whether or not this is a regular occurrence by Greater Wellington or not, if this is an unusual circumstance.
We had a look to see when the previous compliance reports, the ones that we have posted on our website, it looks like they've been received within 3, 4, 5 months. One came in April one year, the year following. It's not unexpected on our part.
To to be fair, I think it goes both ways because 2 years ago, PCC hadn't submitted their annual report on time. And,
Fair call.
And I was following it up with Greater Wellington for quite a few months.
A fair call.
Yes, there was one a couple of years ago that we had to be prompted by Greater Wellington. As I recall, we were scrambling for some information that was required. We got it to them. But as I said, we haven't heard anything back from Greater Wellington as of today.
To Urs Human. Any other questions?
No,
Representative Allen?
yeah, I do have a few more. Also, I think the compliance officer has left Greater Wellington, so that may have something to do with it as well.
Do you want to?
Possibly, yeah. The compliance officer, previous compliance officer, left, and there was a period of handover to the new one, and that would have been about when we expected the compliance report to come in.
Okay.
Page 43, there was a fire at the base of the tipping chute. Do you know what caused that, and was it big enough to require FENS to attend?
Sorry, I don't know the cause of it, but no, FENS was not called out to that one.
So that's not the day we noticed fire engines up at the gate of the landfill.
What was the date?
I don't know, I can't remember. It was the date.
The date on the report is
fire engines.
31st of May 2025.
My recollection is that it was a minor one and it extinguished itself. So that means
Right.
it's not a battery, it's something else that's gone off.
Page 45, there's no data for June, although this report covers April, May and June.
Is correct. We will resubmit this table round to the committee.
Appreciate that. It will have to be
Thank you.
somehow incorporated so as the minutes will reflect that as well. Well,
I'd now
notwithstanding the need to confirm those as a true and accurate record somehow. Representative Allen?
just want to have a look at page 48. Page 48, the findings and outcomes. So it talks about the most, and this is repeated on different reports throughout this section. The most significant finding is the accumulation of sludge in the gas network, which is believed to be blocking some lines and is generally impairing vacuum draw and reducing capture efficiency. It's also noted later on that it's something Enviro New Zealand hasn't seen before particularly. And so is there any idea of how long that's been going on for? How was it discovered? Is it something that can be checked for? Does it contribute to odour? What's the background?
I'll answer as best I can. This is gas technician territory. However, it may have been building up for a significant period of time. It was discovered when a section of pipe was removed to be replaced, and the sludge build-up, it looks like a very lightish grey sludge inside the pipe. If it has been building up for years potentially, it's probably been degrading the ability of the gas network to keep sucking gas through. Since that particular piece of pipe was replaced, the amount of gas being pulled through to the flare has continued to increase and increase. Can it be checked on a regular basis? I don't know the answer to that or whether there is a way to do that, but I can try and find out from Enviro's gas experts.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And the other one, actually, it does fall outside this report period, but it's on page 49, the comment that complaints since the 5th of May have been relatively low. Looking at the charts on your website today, they are significantly higher for June, July and August than they were for last year, looking at over 25 complaints a day.
Yeah, we've got,
fair?
at the moment, we've got a reasonably significant increase heading upwards through July and through August.
And we don't know if these blockages in this line or the hill that needs to be given its top coat, are they likely to be the causes of that, or is it an unknown?
With the work that was done on the gas network post the 5 May event, it's less likely. With the work that's still to be done, putting the final additional 600 millimetres of cap on the eastern slope, that may have some improvement, yes.
So we don't, that's the thing we're waiting for weeks for. Okay, thank you. That's all of my questions at this stage. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Allen. Noting just on that last line of questioning that obviously because of this outside the reporting period, the expectation would be that a subsequent report would cover that in full detail. But I'm sure that, someone will be holding that to account, right? Whether from that position or perhaps over from that position. Councillor Duncan.
Yeah, it's some swan song there, Representative Allen. You've covered most of the things for me there. Look, as page 40, item 39, it talks about tipping trailers. If customers abuse staff, they may be banned. So is that for the day? Is it for a week? How long is it for? And is it a vehicle as well?
When the induction is done, the person wanting to use the tipping trailer is given a set of rules and told, here, sign here, accept. And if that person is flouting the rules or not paying attention, it's simply a ban for life. When we were developing the rules, or when EnviroWaste was developing up their rules, they said to us, we would like to include around abuse of transfer station staff, and we were happy for that to be added in there. So yes, it's for good.
Oh, so it's not just for tipping, it's for anybody there?
For tipping, sorry, for tipping.
Okay, great. And the other one was in the incident report there. A number of people are losing their two-way radios and cell phones and things, I think. Is there no sort of requirement for them to actually make sure they're secured before they go on site?
Not from us, no. You wouldn't want to lose your phone or your radio telephone if you were there. But
On this question, though, I mean, we do have, as a council, irrespective of the operator itself's own health and safety requirements, we still have a health and safety commitment as well as a personal business undertaking. And so I think it is a reasonable line of questioning to see whether or not the operator is considering any additional actions to prevent these incidents from occurring. Could we perhaps have a response back with regards to that? I think that would probably be the most prudent way of addressing that.
We can seek assurance from them that they are diligently executing their own duties. We don't want to cut across the lines of accountability.
I totally agree, just notwithstanding the fact that we still have a shared responsibility in this regard.
One last question. It's just sort of a broad one around the odour complaints from Greer Crescent. So the person went out to investigate. They went to the tip face and smelt the odour, sulphuric, whatever, and then goes to Greer Crescent and smells it there and automatically assumes it's the tip that's creating that odour. Do they check with plumbers to see if there's any big sewer break or anything around the area as well?
as far as I know, they don't. Can I just add something to that, Councillor Duncan? Probably 3 or 4 years ago, we actually had Wellington Water conduct a survey of all of the wastewater network up the very end of the catchment, as there's quite a large network that terminates quite high up the hill. Wellington Water had done some CCTV and smoke testing for us just on the off chance that there was something. As it happened, a couple of terminal manholes actually sit in the yards of 2 of the most frequent complainers. So we ruled, but there was nothing untowards within the wastewater network. But you do have a point, and we haven't questioned that with Greater Wellington. Their process is to determine what they can smell within the neighbourhood, go to the landfill, make sure they can smell the same smell there, and then draw that conclusion.
And
So I can tell you that they do, it's called calibrating their noses. So they do actually train, because everyone's got different olfactory senses, right? So they do actually there is some science behind making sure they're smelling the same thing. Sounds ridiculous, but it's actually a thing, is calibration of noses.
And the last one is, when Greater Wellington fine us, where does that money go?
You'll have to probably take that up with Greater Wellington, I would suspect. Is the officer going to give additional commentary on that?
I assume it goes into Greater Wellington's consolidated fund.
Now, before I go to, because I've got a speaking order here, Councillor Philo, you had just left the room when it was your turn, so I want to make sure you get your chance. Then we'll come to Porirua Kelly, and then we'll go back to Representative Allen.
With regards to the complaints that come through around the odour. Were people advised that phone call was the best method, and why?
Yeah, we did probably 2 or 3 years ago. Greater Wellington asked PCC to be the first point of contact. I think I'm going back 3 years. So what we did was we made sure that our internal systems here were able to handle calls by email, by phone, after hours, during hours. And we also set up a web form that can be used on a mobile phone. At that time, we did a letter drop to around 4,000 houses in the Tawa neighbourhood, around Tawa, to make sure people had that contact number. And for the next couple of years, each time that I spoke to the community liaison group, made sure that we were repeating that number. This is the number to call. One of the things that is tricky is if a Wellington resident rings Greater Wellington directly, for example, and that will cause us a little bit of slip. But the number and the web form, the most frequent method used to make a complaint by far is the web form that we had made.
Okay, so those complaints, were any of them via web form, or were they all via phone, the ones that were missed?
As they were missed, I'm not sure. I won't have seen them. But I need to check to see if there was something slipping on that day.
Was Anteno ever considered?
Anteno was considered. The difficulty with Anteno is that my understanding is it's a shared service with a number of other councils, and for us to be able to make tweaks to it, to be able to roll it out for example, on our web form, we ask you to rate the odour from 1 to 5.
Oh, okay.
We have to roll that through all other councils that are using the service. You can make landfill complaints on it, but our preference is to get that set of data that enables us to build up the historical record analysis and all that sort of thing.
Because currently we could, through Anteno, list or log a air pollution smell, but what you're saying is there's not the capability there to capture 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or whatever you've just said around the...
Yeah, the air pollution smell is the one that we looked at and said, gosh, that's a good one. However, when we went into it, we say we want to know if it's how bad it is from 1, not so bad, to 5, dreadful. We want people to be able to tell us it's a sulphurous smell, smells like my rubbish bin, smells like gas and so on. In order to customise that in Anteno, we had to be putting through a user request on behalf of the council community that uses it. So it's not a council by council customisation.
Okay. Thank you. My next question is the odour treatment that has been done even over this last term. Do you have a ballpark figure of roughly how much has been spent to treat the odour?
I don't up to today. The committee did ask that question, I think, through Representative Allen, probably a couple of annual cycles ago. And at that point, we were up to about 1.1 million from my recollection. But we haven't done an update on that, and the committee hasn't looked for that.
With our consent, it's my understanding that one of the big factors around us not being able to get the consent is the fact that we have so many odour complaints. Is that right? Yeah. So, I mean, we've budgeted for 8 million for the wastewater treatment plant for them to have odour treatment. Is there any sort of thinking around doing something similar for the treatment plant so that we can actually get the consent?
The odour treatment method for the treatment plant will be quite different if you consider the treatment plant's a fairly small and discrete site.
Yeah.
And once you get beyond the infrastructure, the big tanks, the aeration tanks, there's nothing underneath. What we have at the landfill site is a large network of over 100 wells down into the ground, the possibility for escape of gas from a network like that is very, very different from that quite discrete, more containable facility that's at the treatment plant with the clarifiers and the aeration basin. The other thing, just to bear it, so it would be a different method of treatment. The other thing to bear in mind is that the wastewater treatment plant consent has very specific conditions in it around their treatment of odour. Our consent condition requires that there be no obnoxious or objectionable odour escaping from the boundary. But the Wellington Water are working towards a far more prescribed, you must do this and do this. I would imagine, I don't have the experience with respect to the treatment plant apart from having worked next door to one for 8 years, but it would be quite a different asset, a different type of facility to be containing and trying to manage odour from. So probably the answer is probably a different treatment than what's being done at the treatment plant.
Thank you.
Porirua Kelly.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and through you, I do have a question. And it's really about, first of all, to say that it's great that you can now, those that have tipping trailers, particularly the elderly, can use them, because that was a real anomaly that was impacting negatively in our community. But are we missing something here? Because my understanding that why it stopped in the first place was because a kaimahi fell into the pit. And now we're hearing that if there's any abuse, and only if it's trailer people that are tipping trailers, if there is any abuse of kaimahi, and I'm not saying that that's a good thing, but that they are banned for life. I mean, what's going on here? Like, what are we missing? Did something really bad happen or something? Because I can say, and I can generally tell you that whenever I'm up the tip, all of the kaimahi are more than helpful. And I've never observed anyone being rude or disrespectful to our kaimahi there, because all of us appreciate the mahi that they do. So what are we missing? Did something really bad happen up there? Because a ban on someone having an argument with or a disagreement with somebody because they're tipping their trailer and they're banned for life seems a bit extreme to me.
Yeah. Through the Chair, firstly, thank you so much for that comment about the transfer station staff. They are in a pretty difficult position from time to time, so that's nice to hear. With regard to the ban, just to be very specific, it's just on using the hydraulics on the trailer. The trailer can still be used, but it will simply be a matter of you've got to shove the material off yourself. With respect to the abuse, yes, there is some... there's some horrible abuse of Enviro Waste staff that goes on at the landfill, and that was yes, it's one of the high abuse areas we would have, along with cemeteries and animal control and parking officers. You can throw into that lot.
Well, parking officers, I get that one.
Yeah,
Obviously,
and
it's
that's
unacceptable no matter where the context
of course.
and that is quite an obvious one, the one I just mentioned there. But we do get frequent abuse at the kiosk, and some very nasty abuse at the transfer station as well.
So just to clarify, then you're talking about being banned for life if you're not using your trailer properly.
Yeah. So if you've done the induction, you've read the rules, don't stand behind it. That's the prime one.
Well, yeah, dummy if you're going to stand behind a tipping trailer.
However, you've signed on that you're not going to do that, and if you've broken any of those rules, and one of them is we won't tolerate abuse towards our staff, then you'll be stopped from using the hydraulics on the trailer.
It is a timely reminder to be nice no matter where you
Be
are.
kind.
Be kind. Porirua Kelly, any other questions on this
No,
one?
no, thank you. But I do want to do a shout out to our kaimahi who do all of those jobs that you're talking about.
Yeah.
The ones at the Urapa, our kiosks, the frontline staff, and particularly the tip ones. And when it is a wet day and it stinks, though not many people go up there when it's like that, though, really, do we? And I have to say too, I remember when it wasn't as pleasant as it is to go up to the tip. I mean, at least we've got a decent road now and it's concrete. And I also remember when the tip was at where Porirua Park was, and that was abysmal, wasn't it, Mike? Oh, yeah, it was. Yeah, different rules then. Thank you.
You're welcome. Representative Allen?
Just a couple of things. Just a comment and a question. On the Porirua Council website, on the Spicer page, ODA page, the latest news update is regarding an incident in February 2025. So would it be timely to update that with the May incident, the Mitchell Stream incident, so it's one place we can find everything? And just on the Mitchell Streams, just to clarify for me, is it safe now for dogs to go back in that stream? Will social media be updated? What's the next steps?
When we've determined that it's safe, then we will take the signs away and we will put, again, all channels, communications out to let people know.
Okay.
Can I just make one comment just about Intino?
Go ahead, and then I'll go to Councillor Duncan, but I just want to make sure that we might do our last calls at that point, okay?
Yeah, this is just a comment. Just because most people complain about the landfill live in Tawa, we don't have Intino at Wellington City Council. We use Fix It. So most people wouldn't know what it was or how to log a. Lots of.
Noted.
They wouldn't have heard of it.
Yeah. Thank you, Representative Allen. Councillor Duncan?
Just what's happened to the gas to power scheme that we were talking about for so long?
That was on my list, but there you go. Well, that's us now, so there you go.
It seems to have gone off the radar.
Yeah, the company we were speaking to did have a change of personnel probably some months ago now, so they slowed down in coming to us. We've now got, they have selected the site they want to put the machine on. We've given information to them so that they can design the pad that they need to put the machine on. They have also submitted to us design that so they're going to be taking power across the road to where the green waste site is and charging it through the network into Wellington Electricity's network. In order to do that, they need to lay some ducting down alongside the green waste area. We're going to use an opportunity to put that duct in for them very, very shortly when we're digging for some other ducting. So we're still on the ball. Probably the most difficult part of the where we're at right now is LMS working with Wellington Electricity to get agreement to push the power into their grid.
Any other questions on that? I'm going to take the last question on this one, and it's actually not necessarily related to the landfill, but I hope that you might be able to give at least some brief high-level commentary. And that is in regards to the construction and demolition diversion site that is likely to be located close to the landfill as well. My understanding is that we are working towards a December opening. Has there been any clarity around confirming that is still on track?
So when you go up to the landfill, just before you get to the end of Broken Hill Road and pass through the gates, if you look on your right-hand side heading up the road, if you know where Pepe's Pies is, there is a vacant lot next to that, which has just had some security fencing put up. And if you take a look inside that lot, you will see two quite large machines sitting, waiting to be deployed. The lease on the section is being held by the contractor who will be running the equipment, and they are currently working through with PCC's consenting team to get consents required to be able to open the facility. We still believe we're on track for the end of December.
Okay, thank you for that. Anybody want to do any comment? No? Okay. Look, David, thank you very much for coming in. Oh, sorry, there was one other question. The graph that shows the monthly refuse tonnages, this is point 23, page 37 of Diligent. As I read it, it looks as though that we have yet again got another relative decrease in monthly tonnages that seems to be part of a broader trend. In the past, officers have made comment that this seems more around the pace of construction and demolition within Porirua, or at least within the catchment area. I'm assuming that that assumption still holds, but it is heartening to see the decrease. And do you believe that there may still yet be some rundown as well in terms of that amount going to landfill?
It's very hard to quantify which it is. We understand that as a national picture, tonnages nationally are actually declining. It's not just us, but it would be nice to think it was waste minimisation playing into that as well.
I assume that we won't know for some time until we start to see some of those other measures and additional measures yet to be deployed as well before we know the full picture. Okay. Thank you again, David, and the officers for preparing the materials on notice, and obviously for answering the questions. There are some items that will need to be communicated through to the committee, as well as the timeframe that you've disclosed today as well. The motion's been moved. It's been seconded. All those in favour say aye. To the contrary, no. Abstentions? Carried. We move on to 7.3. Wastewater Treatment Plant in Spicer Landfill Financial Report, June 2025. I will move the motion. Being that the Joint Committee received the report, do I have a seconder? It's Councillor Philo. Now, officer comment? Yeah, indeed. Noting that if we do carry on beyond 10 minutes, I will be just pausing briefly to pass the motion so that we can continue on. That's not a reason to go quicker. It's just the reason. It's just to point out the situation. Officer comment, Ian and Jim, thank you. Note that the items on the agenda have been taken as read. Do you have any additional comment before we go to questions?
Thank you, Chair. I'll take it as read, but just highlight that this is the fourth quarter, so end of the financial year. It's an exciting time for accountants. We get to prepare annual reports and deal with auditors and so on. But the numbers in here are unaudited. They're pretty much as we expect them to be through the audit process. But there's always the potential that there could be something that we haven't picked up. But just to highlight that the excuse me. The deficit on the wastewater treatment plant is larger than budgeted, but that's offset by a larger surplus in the landfill, and the two things are largely offsetting. So the charges coming through from the landfill for the waste from the wastewater treatment plant have been charged at a greater rate than what we had in the budget. So these things are kind of largely offsetting. The only other thing I'd highlight is in the landfill, we have had less charge coming through carbon emissions and the waste levies. So that's actually a positive in the landfill. So on the whole, OPEX has landed as expected, or at least signalled through the quarterly reports that we've been putting up. There's nothing new in this quarter that we haven't observed in the first three quarters. And CapEx is a little behind in both landfill and wastewater treatment plant. I think some of the phasing in our budgets wasn't quite aligning to how the actuals have been coming through. Some of these projects are multi-year projects, so I think we've had some phasing issues there. But on the whole, I think it's been a good year, good result, and open to questions.
Porirua Kelly, then I'll have Councillor Duncan.
Yeah, thank you. I agree, it has been a good year. We had forecasted for there to be a surplus, and we, I think if I remember correctly, it's like 2.7 million more than what we had forecasted the surplus to be. What I am concerned about is that while we have that surplus and the rationale that was given to us in the previous meeting was that this was to be put aside for when we close the tip, which we know is not going to be likely for at least another 30 years, that Pūtea hasn't actually been tagged to that. So that's really concerning. And the reason why I'm raising this is because while we have seen an increase in Pūtea coming into our coffers for the landfill, what we have seen is a reduction in tipping fees, people actually going and using the landfill to tip. And that was one of the real concerns that I have with, and I did raise it, was with us continually putting the fees up, because right now, to go and tip a trailer is over 100, it's about $106 to tip a trailer.
Loath to do this, Porirua, Kelly. Is there a question?
Yeah, so the question is, what are we doing to address what we are now seeing around the city, the fly tipping that is going on, because we continue to put these fees up? What are we doing about that?
Let's answer that. Let's get an answer on that question with regards to fees relating to fly tipping officers.
Well, it's more about that there's been a reduction in people paying to go and use the tip.
I'll let them answer the question, but noting as well that fly tipping does not relate necessarily to the landfill, but I'm going to allow officers to provide some level of commentary to assist.
So there's a whole lot in there, Kelly. But first of all, with respect to surpluses and reserves, we are planning to give the new council actually a fulsome brief on that. There's quite a lot to that. We're not ready to talk about that yet in public because it relates to some commercial aspects of operating a landfill, and we prefer not to speak about that in public. So that's the first thing with respect to the reserves. With respect to fly tipping, there is some science that shows that when you increase landfill fees, there is a spike in fly tipping, but then it comes back after a while. I have to be honest, I don't know that we've got any statistics on this in Porirua other than what we reckon, but it's something we'd be happy to kind of have a look at with respect to...
well, I can tell you around Cannons Creek, I'm seeing a real increase in just rubbish being left on the street.
Noting that, can I perhaps make a suggestion that allows us to get to a place where we might be able to get some meaningful data on this? Is that at a subsequent point, officers could provide some commentary on what data we do hold. I would suspect, for instance, Anteno has a source, as does the call centre, with regards to reporting on this matter, and that may be able to provide at least some sort of longitudinal study of the issue in general. Also, I note that the council has increased its fees, its penalties for fly tipping as well recently. Members of the council will be remembered to vote on that issue.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. We'd very much like to come back to you with some structured advice rather than... I have anecdotes too, but yeah.
Yeah, appreciate that. It is an issue though, and I don't know that people report it all the time either.
That's very true, although, and I'm sure that we can all bounce back anecdotes, like, for instance, the one I had on Saturday as well. But that said, officers will work on something around that. Representative Allen. Oh, sorry, sorry, my apologies. It was Councillor Duncan that was next on my speaking list.
Yeah, look, you were saying about the ETSs being a lot less, but the waste levy, that's gone down as well, has it?
Yes, so essentially the waste levy is calculated on volumes, and as per the previous report, we've seen volumes coming down.
So the waste levy that is charged has stayed the same or is about to increase, but because volumes have come down, that's the driver, not the actual levy itself. The levy has stayed the same, about to go up $5 actually.
Okay, and following on from that, we get a certain amount of that back, don't we, for... maybe.
Yes.
Yeah.
However, you'll be able to explain the broader context of potential changes to government policy that may have been mooted recently.
Yes. So we pay $65 a tonne to the government. The government splits that in half, keeps half for a fund that it runs itself. The other half gets dished out to councils on a per capita basis. We do okay out of that. The government's looking at changing how they do the calculation. We've had a look at that. We actually do okay out of that as well. It's kind of not really here nor there. Other councils stand to lose. I think the bigger councils stand to lose. That's tied up with 4 or 5 other changes that the government's looking at with respect to waste minimisation, most of which kind of line up pretty nicely with our own regional waste management and minimisation plan.
Any other questions on that? Councillor Philo.
Can you remind me, are the proportions of revenue that is received from or to Wellington and PCC, are they well, there's no revenue really for treatment plant as such, but for the landfill there would be, right, the sort of split. Is the split the same at the landfill as it is at the treatment plant? Like the costs or the expenses of the treatment plant, is that split the same as, you know, what's received?
And the answer is no, but they're very close.
Okay.
So, and actually there's 3 percentages, and I won't claim to have them memorised off the top of my head, but for the wastewater treatment plant, there is one which relates to the split of OPEX costs associated with wastewater treatment plant, and that's set once a year by the flows that are measured coming from North Wellington. And so that sets a percentage that drives the OPEX costs for the wastewater treatment plant.
Sorry to do this. I'm going to move a procedural motion to extend the meeting beyond 2 hours. Seconded by Councillor Philo. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Carried. Let's carry on with this, shall we? Sorry, Ian.
Then there's a CapEx percentage, which is as per the original deed governing the wastewater treatment plant. And then the third percentage I referred to is relating to the ownership split on the landfill. Now, all 3 of those are around about 75-25 or 74-26, you know, around about that ratio, but there is some variance in there. Thus, they are set in slightly different ways.
Okay, so the reason I asked that question is when you referenced around the sludge, the tonnage.
Yes.
So we are paying, the treatment plant is paying more because there's more, but then the landfill is receiving more.
Yeah.
Right, and so when you say it, they offset each other.
Well, I think I see where you're going. So as far as an accounting summary, you know, a profit and loss of the 2 entities, yeah, they do roughly kind of offset each other. Well, they do, because, you know, one's charging and one's paying. But when it comes to the Wellington City Council versus Porirua City Council ownership, there is some slight variation there. We're not talking, you know, enormous amounts, but, you know, there's a 1 or 2 percentage points in it. So it's not material, but in the scheme of things, yeah, it's slightly different. Does that?
Yeah, thank you.
Does that kind of, yeah.
Any other questions, Councillor Philo? Representative Allen.
Through the chair, I'm not quite sure who my question is directed at. My understanding is the resource consent for the landfill expires in 2030, and I'm not sure if I've missed something, but Porirua Kelly made a comment that the landfill won't close for 30 years. So is there something I've missed out on?
I'd be impressed to know if the landfill was closing in 30 years' time, but I'm happy to, if there's any clarification required. My understanding is that Council, as has been alluded to in the reports on notice, had a workshop with regards to the future of that location. I had requested that information was presented to the non-council representatives of this committee, and that I have also followed up on your request to seek further clarification of that briefing so as to assist the committee members in terms of understanding the broader conversations that are being held. The last I saw was that an offer was made by officers to meet with you. I'm assuming that they have done so or are about to. Excellent. I think that'd probably be the best way rather than trying to deal with any possibility of misinformation at this point. Any other questions? We good? Okay. Comments? Thank you very much, Ian and Jim. Oh, sorry, did you have one?
Just one.
Councillor Duncan.
Just a vote of thanks to you, Jeff. I reckon you've been a fantastic chair of this meeting and really appreciated your efforts.
Look, thank you. I'm gonna head this off at the pass right now. Okay, I appreciate the comment and the sentiments expressed with that. Obviously, it is very much appreciated, but we'll leave it there. I'm going to move this motion. Has been moved and seconded. All those in favour say aye. To the contrary, no. It is passed. I declare the meeting closed at 4:04 p.m. We will now read the karakia. Please, with gusto. Toru wha, kia horo te mareno, kia whakapapa pounamu te moana, he huarahi mā tātou e te rangi nei. Aroha atu, aroha mai, tātou ia tātou katoa, hui e, tae ki e. Go Black Ferns. See you guys.